This title is narrated with virtual voice, computer-generated narration for audiobooks. Nikola Tesla, by J.D. Arden. Preface. He lived in lightning. Say that without sentiment and it still crackles. A man whose thoughts arrived not as steady arguments but as volatile, peeling currents that demanded immediate attention. Nikola Tesla moved through the world with the contagious certainty of someone who had seen the architecture of nature and wanted to rewire it. That certainty could be luminous and generous, and it could be ruinous. Both qualities are essential to understanding a life spent trying to make the future behave like a machine of exquisite symmetry and improbable grace. This book is not a catalog of inventions, nor a shrine of myth. It is an attempt to trace the shape of a mind whose images were sometimes scientific and sometimes religious, sometimes engineering and sometimes prophecy. Tesla was fluent in equations and in allegory. He could sketch an induction motor on a napkin and speak of rivers of power flowing invisibly through the air as if naming a hymn. The danger in writing about him is distinct. The man attracts myth the way storm clouds attract lightning, and myth obscures the messy, tactical warfare of money, reputation, and legal maneuvering that did as much to forge his fate as did his own impulses. This book aims to keep both facts and fictions under controlled observation. The conflict at the heart of this story is narrow and broad at once. Narrow because it involves particular patents, publicity chases, and engineering choices. Broad because those technical disputes mapped onto larger questions about what modern life would prioritize: centralized control or distributed possibility, spectacle or service, showmanship or subtlety. The war of currents was a dispute about alternating versus direct current, and it was also a proxy war about how power should enter a household and who would profit when it did. Edison had bravado and market instincts. Tesla had visions and a stubborn conviction that the invisible could be civilized. Both played their roles with theatrical intensity. Reading Tesla without context is like reading poetry without knowing the language it borrows from industry. The story moves from the sodden fields of the Balkans to the neon sprawl of New York, and at each stop the landscape reshapes the man. Rural necessity taught him to see patterns in the ordinary. Urban spectacle taught him to perform genius. The spaces between, laboratories, courtrooms, the pages of journals, are where ideas get translated into power, and where power exposes the human costs of invention. A great idea does not automatically get a hospitable market, nor does the market always reward the most original thinker. I have tried to keep my pen impatient with hagiography and unsentimental about failure, while also sympathetic to the loneliness of someone who hears the world in frequencies others cannot detect. You will find technical explanation when it clarifies consequences, not to parade knowledge, and you will find cultural and personal detail when it demonstrates motive. The aim is a balance: show the machinery, explain the stakes, expose the theater, and keep an eye on the human impulses that made genius a combustible mixture rather than a tidy triumph. If this preface does anything useful, it announces a simple method: follow the currents, mechanical, financial, rhetorical, and notice where they meet or clash. Observe how invention is as much a social act as a technical one. Watch how fame can be a scaffold and a trap. Above all, remember that genius is not a clean weapon. It is a force that both illuminates and burns, and the stories we tell about it should respect that ambiguity. Chapter 1. Lightning in the Balkans. He lived in lightning. Say that without sentiment and the image still cuts. Thought as current, sudden, bright, incapable of patience. Those flashes were not metaphor alone. They arrived as a bundle of sensory insistences: church bells, the white flare of storm over stubble, the whir of a distant mill, that braided into a habit of mind treating force and form as the same language. He moved through youth with the proprietary certainty of someone who had seen nature's architecture and decided to rewire it. That certainty had two faces: luminous generosity and ruinous impatience. Both explain how a man who could conjure an induction motor in his head could still lose wars fought in courtrooms and on factory floors, because temperament governs which battles a genius chooses and how he fights them. Smiljan was not a romantic cradle. It was a pressure chamber that taught what counted as a problem.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.